and you should be up.
Okay, I'm going to go and just watch the live because I'm not going to display anything. So I'm going to see if I can make this work. Okay, so, all right. Now I lost my people thing. Can you guys still hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I just got to figure out I lost the little bars. Oh, there it is. Okay, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I was just going to watch have the YouTube up so I could see if there's any comments, but no one ever attends our meeting anyway. So, okay, call the April 2nd Templeton Advisory Committee meeting to order, and we'll still do the pledge. So if everybody could just stand, I'll say it out loud, and then if it gets really weird when everybody does it at the same time. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome. Obviously, this is going to be a little bit different than what we're used to. At least this way, Will can't smack me right next to me, so sitting next to me. So our first order is we have Mr. Tom Smith on that is graciously volunteered to become a member of our committee. He's put the appropriate document into Holly. I'll just ask you 3 quick questions, Tom,
Sure.
and then I'll open it up. Just things that are requirements of our board. One is you don't work for any department in town.
I do not.
You're a resident of the town.
Yes, I am.
And you're not on any other boards or committees.
I am not.
Okay. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll open it up for questions?
Sure. Templeton, born and raised, basically. I was born here 50 years ago in Gardner. Lived in Templeton all my life. Went to school, Salem State for my bachelor's, and Anna Maria College for my master's in public administration. I'm currently the fire chief in Winchendon and currently live in Templeton. Other than that, that's about all there is. Married with 2 children and happy household.
Great. Anybody have any questions?
I don't have a question, but just a comment, just so people are aware that Tom was basically the prime mover for getting the ambulance receipt reserve bylaw that was done a number of years ago. And my question would be, what's your thoughts on what's happening with that bylaw since you were the initiator, Tom?
When I initially put it through, it went through quite smoothly. Unfortunately, I was gone to Winchendon shortly thereafter. After it was in place, I think there was a few minor changes that may or may not have been purposely done. Currently now, I know that I've at one point sat down with Carter when he first came to town and tried to discuss it with him some. As far as how it's being used now, I think it's straight a little bit, but I think the actually integrity of the article is still there. It's just had some minor tweaks throughout the years as things in town have changed. Does that answer your question, Will? Or
Yeah, I was just looking for what your thoughts were, because I know you had initiated this, and in my eyes, things have changed dramatically from the original intent as it was put out there to the community.
I certainly would need to see what changes have been made to it as far as town meeting wise. Having lived out of town for about 4.5 years, I did take a little step aside from actually town meetings at that point because I was no longer a resident. It certainly would be fairly easy to be up to speed in it, I'm sure.
You'll get to see that when we go through the budget as to how things have changed from its original intent. I'm not going to go into that in detail since we're
Okay.
talking about having you come on board. I just want to make sure people understood that you have as far as I'm concerned, you have a vested interest in that since you initiated it and you were looking out for the betterment of the town. And I applaud you for standing up at this particular time for helping out the community.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
If there's nobody else, Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to accept Tom Smith as a member of the advisory committee.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. And we'll vote Lee,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Amy,
I vote yes.
Will,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. I just kind of did that across the people, how people are on my screen. I know that's a little out of order. Okay, well, welcome to the committee, Tom. You're certainly welcome to stay and participate. Until you get sworn in, you won't be able to vote tonight.
Okay.
So what'll happen now is Debbie has a form. Debbie's our secretary. She has or a little letter that she'll send to Carol Harris. Do you remember that, Deb, that you did for Faith? And just copy me on that to let her know that you're a new member of the committee. And I'll put you on our email. So anybody that sends an email to the advisory committee mailbox, I have it set up so everybody gets it. Because I kind of like transparency. I don't want people just emailing me stuff because sometimes I'll forget to put it out.
One suggestion to Deb is that they can end up making sure the moderator ends up getting is on copy also.
Well, yeah, we can send it to, but it's really Carol that needs that.
Yes, I understand it, but he should at least be CC'd.
Sure. And then you'll have to email Carol. I don't know if she's coming in the office at all. She may be, to figure out when you can get actually officially sworn in. So once you do that, if you just shoot me an email saying, okay, it's all done. Because there's a couple training classes you have to do. And you don't have to do those, I don't think, before you get sworn, but Carol will get an email to you. So I don't think it's going to be
I'll get in touch with Carol and we'll go from there.
Okay. Okay. Did everybody, I know Deb, you just got the minutes out just a few, like 20 minutes ago, right? No? Okay,
I sent him I thought it was
that's fine.
Tuesday.
Okay, I just looked at them 20 minutes ago. So that's what I thought. Okay, has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Any comments?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
You have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Lee?
Abstain.
That's right, you were there. Deb?
Yeah.
Amy?
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right, moving right along. All right, next on the agenda was for the review of the budget meeting from Saturday. And actually, there's a couple of us, I think it was just Amy and I that were on yesterday when Narragansett did this. I know, Will, you had made a comment of wanting to go over it line by line. I guess I'd want the committee to decide whether they wanted to do that or not.
Well, maybe not line by line, but at least department and picking out those that there was any questions. I'm a little disappointed because I'll admit I didn't make Saturday. I had health issues then. I did look at some of that meeting. I haven't seen it all. I was disappointed in the lack of more in-depth questions on some of the stuff, because I saw some things that to me, as I've stated before, with this economic impact because of the virus, I'm concerned that the revenues are not going to come in, and the department heads are still looking at getting their entire budgets with no pullback at all. And I mean, I think there's plenty of room in that budget to make cuts, and I will, when we get to the budget, I'll end up talking about the particular things I saw in the budget that I think that don't necessarily should be there, and that we could probably do without.
Okay, I guess my thoughts on, with the virus going on, I don't think anybody really knows what the true impacts to any department's going to be, because you don't know how long it's going to go on for. In fact, they could be saving money a little now. We just don't know. I mean, this is such a new thing to the country of having everybody basically working from home. I mean, just look, we're doing this. So I don't know that any department head can really intelligently speak on what the impacts to their departments are.
Well, I'm not talking about the present budget. I'm talking about next year's budget. As we all know, that they just put out unemployment figures for over 7,000 in this last week. It's going to take a while for the economy to get back, and I'm talking about the impact on next year's budget as revenues coming in. I see young families, and they should be looking at the priority of probably feeding and clothing their children and taking care of the children, versus maybe end up getting real estate taxes and either water and sewage paid on time. So that's an impact that I see.
Oh, well, I think all of us would concur with that those are potential impacts, but I feel like it's not an impact you really know until you actually see it, because you don't know everybody's situation.
Well, the reason I bring it up is we have not been proactive in the past. And I see that as, if we're going to sit back and wait for something to happen, that's the wrong thing as far as I'm concerned.
So do you have like a suggestion on what we should do?
I'd like to jump in for a quick second on that. The one thing that we don't know is, unfortunately, some of these departments may actually go up in what they need in their budgets. I know that's not anything anyone likes to hear, but as the increases, whether it's from the senior center or from the public safety or from some of them, the costs may actually go up on some of them. So it's going to be a seesaw battle, I think, until we actually know what the full impact of how long this virus actually affects the communities.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then actually, with your background in fire, you may be using protective equipment at a much higher rate now than you had planned. So they're going to have more supplies to replenish that. Maybe they needed 10 of one, now they need 20.
Yeah, just in the last week itself, we've had to budget-wise spend dramatically more than we ever anticipated. We're hoping that stops now, and we hope we get reimbursed on some of it. But unfortunately, some of the towns do need to know, it potentially could change things a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I agree. I think you make a really valid point, but I think it's right now, unfortunately, unquantifiable. So it's hard to sit there and say, Department A, you don't probably need this, so we can backfill this, or we don't know how much revenue we're not going to get. It's just really difficult to say, but you're right on with the point.
Well, without getting into specifics, there is actual jobs that are not necessary this coming year, in my estimation. And I won't dwell on that right now. When we get into the budget, I'll be very verbal about that.
Well, we're into the budget, so.
Well, my thoughts are, we don't need an expensive consultant when we're going to end up having a new administrator. And it should be that the selectmen should be more than willing to take and end up letting go of their stipends when nobody else in this community is getting stipends, and we have issues that we need to take and end up doing. We're going to have a downturn in the amount of money for meals tax, which is going to have a direct impact on our ability to take and pay the lease for a highway department truck and the police vehicle. I mean, I see that already coming. I mean, if anybody doesn't believe that, let me know, because that's what I see. I mean, these restaurants are unfortunate. They're under a lot of pressure here, and some of them are not going to make it. And I feel badly about that, because this has an impact all the way around. It's going to have an impact on our community. Whether or not the budgets need to take and end up being shored up is one thing, but the revenue coming in to support that budget is something else. We may have to shift around from one budget to the next. And you know that I've always been a proponent of having more money in the emergency reserve to take and end up washing that through. That's what I'm talking about. There's areas in the budget that we could end up easily reducing, just as I said, and put that in the emergency reserve. And when a department has a problem, is to take and end up helping supplement that throughout the year. That's what it's for. This is the type of things that we should be proactive on and not wait till something happens. If a lot happens and we only have the amount of money that's allocated in the budget, and there's a lot of changes in this coming year to what the departments need, we need to be ready to take and end up making sure that they can end up continuing their operation.
Okay, anybody else have comments?
You know, this is Deb. I sort of, I agree in some senses, like when they were going through the budget, what I was thinking about is those budgets and those requests were made prior to the virus hitting. And I know Chief Dickey, when he presented, identified that they may see an increase in financial needs in the fire department's budget because of personal protective equipment and just increased calls. I imagine as increased calls come, that's exposing some of the first responders to the virus. And I don't know what the procedure or protocol is going to be if people are exposed and they then need to either quarantine or self-isolate, and who's going to step up and take their place, and how all that's going to function. But I certainly think it would be prudent to kind of look over everything and identify, you know, is there room to, they took a lot of money away in that, and I understand that's because those budgets are the bigger chunks where they put bigger amounts of lump sum disallowed, but those may be the budgets that actually need that money. So would it be prudent to take a second look at everything now, knowing that we're going to walk into the fiscal year 21 with this virus and the impacts of it, and just reassess what is truly needed, and can we leave extra money in some way, shape, or form in the first responder budgets to be able to handle the impacts of the virus? So that's just my thought.
I think it'd
And
certainly be.
also, there's other priorities that need to take and end up being looked at. There are some things in the budget which, when it comes to going to the MMA meeting, may not be a bigger priority. It may be that we need to take and have that money for either police, fire, or highway to take and end up making sure that those departments are able to do their job, especially in the case of the fire department, since they were cut back.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get an argument from anybody on that. I think maybe one of the things we might want to do is, and I'll shoot an email off to Adam and Carter to see if they have any plans to relook at the budget with an eye on the virus, to see if that's going to, how they think it might, what are they thinking that's going to do to the budget? Especially like Will said with revenues. I think that's a very good point. So I'll shoot them an email.
I just got a quick question on the setup there down at Town Hall. Is Adam preparing to step forward and be permanent in a single person down there, or is this
Yes.
permanently going to be a tag team?
No. So it was a 3-year plan. First year, Adam was a management fellow. And then in October, I think it was this past October, he was named assistant town administrator and has full purchasing order rights and everything. And then I'm not sure when, but at some point, he will become the town administrator. And then there's a plan to keep Carter on for, I think, 5 hours a week as a consultant.
That's supposed to happen in October.
Right, but it could happen sooner. I don't think it can happen any sooner than
To me, to have, I'm sorry, but to me, to have a consultant for that amount of money, when we're looking for him to take over the town and be an administrator. He has the MMA, he has the Town Administrator Association, and I'm sure he's developed contacts out there. So what's the use of having a consultant per se?
I guess that's really a question for the selectmen.
I guess when it comes to the consulting end, it really wouldn't necessarily have to be a certain amount of hours a week. It could just be if Adam feels he's in the weeds and needs help. So having talked to him, he seems very, very up on what's going on in the community. And I think that he wouldn't necessarily have to have a set number of hours for someone. It could be, maybe he just needs to make a phone call. It doesn't have to be
That's what I think.
hours every week.
Yeah, that's what I think. But I think maybe it's a conversation we'll have to have with the Board of Selectmen and what their plans going forward are.
Well,
All
it
right.
appears that at least one selectman would like to end up having the transition happen a lot sooner.
Yeah, and obviously, Will, we can make that recommendation if we choose to bring it up at a next meeting as a budget, as a agenda item. But they're just going to take it and they're going to do what they want to do anyway. So
You mean like they've done with the IMA with Hubbardston?
then the school choice or the school charter or
Yes.
charge.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's not leadership addressing the issue.
I agree. And I know Lee just addressed it with Mike again just a week ago, Lee.
Yeah, I think it was 2 weeks ago, but yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, anything else on the, or let me give you a quick, and Amy, please chime in if I forget anything. So Dr. Cassavant talked about the school district budget. Essentially, they're going to close Phillipston. They're going to, so there's 5 classes of each K through 5. They're going to eliminate 1 class of each, except K through 4. And then all those Phillipston K through 4 students are going to go to Templeton Elementary. The 5th grade is going to go back to the middle school. And they had some concerns about scheduling. So while the 8th graders are going to stay in place at the middle school complex, that part of the building, they're going to actually be part of the high school. So we'll have a 5-year high school. And they talked about the need to bring a full-time janitor into Templeton Elementary and a few other positions. I asked the question of, you're saving X amount of money by closing Phillipston. And I really wanted to see kind of a ledger of, because their budget's about 279,000 over what it was last year. And if you're saving $1 million, how did you spend that $1 million? Now, I mean, I know that there's the teachers, collectively bargained 2.5% raises, and there's insurance and there's other stuff. I would have just liked to seen a better accounting of that money, where it went to. They're retaining a teacher, they're retaining a custodian, They're going to hire a school psychologist. And I would have just liked to see how they're going to spend that money, because I couldn't understand why we were over the 19.5 that they were last year. And I know they have the info, and I know Dr. Casavan, if I send him an email, will send it to me, which I'll probably do tomorrow. Amy, did I miss anything?
I think my understanding with the school expenditures being up 1.18% from last year, because they were very keen on that number, that it's only 1.18% up from last year's agreed upon budget after everything that happened. Their income is lower. So they're receiving less Medicaid, and those receipts that the school bills out for, they're getting less from the state. So while they were able to keep their total ask to Templeton within this range that Templeton had said would be ideal, it's not going to be sustainable. And I think the only reason that, like, they have cost increase because they've got to take money from other places and move it around to cover those other receipts that aren't coming in from the state or the other places that they gather. I don't want to misspeak, so I'm being deliberately vague because I can't remember exactly what it is. I think I applaud their efforts, but it feels frustrating because this literally is Dr. Cassavant standing with his finger in the hole in the dike. And we know that he can't stand there very long. So.
Yeah, I would agree. They also did say that regarding, in a big hot button issue, school choice, that there is not going to be any, they're not going to allow any new students in for school choice K through 8. They didn't really talk about the high school, but they also said that their numbers of school choice out year before or last year was 150. They're down to 122 now. So just kind of a testament to the great staff we have over at the school district.
Right, and that's definitely cyclical. He mentioned school choice he's discouraging it. That's a decision for the school committee. The town can't make that decision. The school committee makes that. And I don't think they've formally voted on it yet, but they're definitely leaning towards Dr. Cassavant's guidance toward no school choice, knowing that people move in and out of the district, and in order to accommodate a change in numbers, because they are very close to that 30 pupils per room mark with this move, with this shift from Phillipston closing. So Dr. Cassavant feels it's super important to commit the space to the town residents, and that's just more shift that will happen if we can't take any more school choice school choice students. Then that lowers money coming in to some extent. Everybody who's here now, I gather, will be allowed to continue. That's something I had asked at a different meeting and wasn't talked about last night at all. But it's definitely an interesting situation for sure. School choice is always a hot button. And I don't think he mentioned the high school because space is different at the high school.
Right. Okay. Anybody have any questions on that?
Well, I viewed it that they should have at least level funded and ask for more money, because we all know it's only a matter of time. Next year's budget for this school, even with Phillipston being closed, is going to be substantially higher. It's how they operate.
Well, I think that their thought is the number they come up with now is always a compromise number. That may not be the right wording, but that if they could, if we could give them another $2 million, they'll spend it and spend it on stuff that's beneficial to the kids in the district. But I think when you look at it, there, I think Amy hit it right on the head, where Dr. Cassavant's like got his finger in the hole, and hopefully it doesn't come out. All right, so any more discussion on the budget?
Well, I think we should still be going through the budget before annual town meeting to give our recommendation. As you saw, I don't know if everybody saw, but the latest thing, and I'm surprised because he hasn't done that in the past, is to take and end up giving us an unprotected version so that we could put our numbers in. In the past, he has not done that, and that's left the advisory committee out of the loop as far as recommendations. And I have to applaud Adam for giving us the first time, and I ended up going through it so that we had the opportunity to go department by department, account by account, and to take and either agree or disagree, and to get our numbers, and it would roll up into that top level sheet. And I think that's, I see Carter actually sent it out again unprotected, which
Yep.
I think there's very few changes that were made. So we still have that opportunity to do that.
All right. It's all in how you ask for it, Will.
Has the town approach, are they still looking at the town meeting being at the same time
No,
frame?
I was going to discuss that when we discuss
Okay.
the warrant. I just want to
Well,
make sure.
Carter in his email put out that it would be sometime in
Yeah,
June.
I'm gonna discuss that, Will,
Yeah, okay.
as part of the draft warrant. Okay, and no more questions on the budget? Okay, moving along to the draft warrant. Okay, so I asked them to send an electronic copy of the warrant, even though we got it in our budget books. They went over it last night. I thought they were only gonna go over one or two things, and I just, after 2 hours last night, I just couldn't hang on any longer. So we have a copy of the draft warrant. Tom, I'll send that to you.
Thanks.
So, and the reason I asked for the, because they have not officially moved the town meeting, technically they have to give us the warrant on the 10th, 8th, 10th, whatever day it is. So I told Carter last night, I said, well, you know, I think if you send us a draft, knowing that the town meeting, they're talking about June 17th now, moving it, that the Board of Selectmen will not vote on the warrant until their meeting on the 22nd. So they vote on it, we don't get the official copy. So I thought that if they are moving the meeting, and then we're gonna get, we get a draft warrant, we'll get it probably around the end of April. Will still give us plenty of time to go through it, have time for a pre-town meeting and everything. But I still wanted to hold them to at least getting us a draft by the 8th, which they did. Knowing that they're not going to have a certified warrant. So right now they're talking about June 17th. They'd like to do it before the fiscal year so we can vote on the budget, not go into a 1/12 situation starting the 1st of July.
I thought that at least from what I heard, I thought at work was they were postponing when they'd actually go into that 1/12 budget and allowing the select board to approve a budget moving forward until you could actually have a town meeting, whether you had to have it in July, August, September, depending on how long this all goes forward.
Okay, is that late breaking kind of? That's what they said last night. They didn't mention that at their meeting last night, but that may be a possibility. I think things are changing so rapidly.
At last night's meeting, did they mention about putting those articles that one of the selectmen has talked about? And one of them was
Yes, ad nauseum they talked about it, right, Amy? So the one that you were talking about with Tom earlier, I'm not sure what they're going to do. I got the impression we'll see a citizens petition on that. And the other one, I think they were going to go forward with. I forget what the second one was. But yeah, they discussed it. They really didn't come to a resolution on either that I recall. But when we get the actual warrant.
Normally what they do in a workshop like they had is they come to a consensus that it will be discussed and brought up at the next meeting and voted on.
I think that's what they're gonna do. We probably talked for a half an hour on the ambulance receipt. So,
What's the, like, I guess, purpose of a selectmen's workshop versus just having a regular meeting every 2 weeks so that things can be voted on and move forward with the town? I guess I wasn't
it's
around to
kind of a thing they do. They don't, they more discuss things than vote on things. That's my impression.
That's basically because of your present administrator. That's his mode of operation versus how everybody else will be working.
So that potentially could change if things move forward and to benefit the town. It could change possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Adam may have different ways of doing things, but right now he supports Carter, so.
Well, as an employee, he has no choice. And I won't dwell on that because I have some information on that.
Okay. All right, anybody have any questions on the warrant? I think that we got that last night. Any old business?
Well, the only thing I would have on the warrant is one of the articles in the time when things are in flux and you're looking at the revenue being impacted for next year, you don't end up increasing fees. That's to me is a no-no.
I haven't, honestly, Will, I haven't looked at the warrant yet. Can you
Well, I
talk,
have.
can you talk to the specific article you're talking about?
Yep, it's about the $15 fee for the as far as a fee for real estate taxes.
Mhm. But again, I think Deb made this point earlier. Remember, they kind of came up with these budgets and all this stuff before the virus. So that's why I'll shoot that email off to Adam and Carter to find out if they're going to relook at some of those things.
With the entrance of new fees possibly, would it be possible just to put that off to a certain time period in the next fiscal year? It will still give the town a little bit of additional income, but it'll also give the taxpayers and the citizens a break on not having to necessarily.
They could, but they'd have to rewrite.
Problem now.
Yeah, they could, but they'd have to probably rewrite the article to say, this fee is increasing to X on this date, put a start date to it. Where normally when you pass it, it's, as you know, it starts.
It did have a
the
start
first
date
of the year.
of January of 2021.
Oh, okay. I mean, I think that's obviously something to look at. And when we do our pre-town meeting, hopefully we'll have a better idea of what the, what the situation looks like. And, we can make those recommendations to the town based on how we see the forecast. Any old business? New business? The next meeting we'll do on the 16th. We'll probably do it via Zoom again. I thought this worked out fairly well. Tom, I want to welcome you to the board.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be joining you guys.
And we'll get everything squared away with Carol, and I'll get you on the emails. And I'll forward all the emails that I've gotten. Probably not tonight because I'm on a computer all day long and I just don't want to be on it anymore. Does anybody have any other comments? No, well, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We
Bye.
are adjourned. Sean, thank